Hello everybody, Graham here. Welcome back to Living Through Cancer. On my last episode I was talked about a little bit about the impacts of cancer on your family life, on your mental well-being, and also on your physical well-being. What I'm going to do today is tell you one of the instances I came across once I was being referred and put into the system of the NHS with regards to my cancer or my prostate cancer. So the doctor referred me to the NHS and I went up there, and what I'm going to tell you is about the journey and how I started to have the realization of that there was something wrong. The doctor at the local GP, after I had the phone call, told me that my PSA results were quite high, significantly high. That meant there was definitely a detection of cancer in my blood cells or in my prostate. So what they wanted to do is then come to a conclusion of an understanding of how aggressive the cancer was, and that can be done through the scans. They can also do a biopsy. That's another story for a later day. That was incredible. But I'm going to tell you about the journey of me understanding there was something wrong and me traveling up to the hospital with my wife. Now, as soon as I had the phone call with the doctor, there was 1,000 thoughts going through my head. There's something wrong. What do I do about it? How do I get the information to understand where do I go from here? And in some respects, the blocks of what I built in my life started to come down one by one. The idea of me having cancer was not a realization yet. It was a fear of the word cancer. I didn't really understand it, what was going on in my body, although I did feel something was wrong in my body. And it's that thought of, where do I go from here? Who do I tell? What do I tell myself? How do I calm myself? How do I, am I going to die? And I'm using words like, am I going to die? Because a lot of people at my age will probably think, okay, this is the start of the end. Now, the end can come in 10 years' time, it can come in a year's time. It would depend on how aggressive your cancer is. So, again, I just remind you, I'm not going to give you advice. I'm not going to give you solutions to anything. I'm just going to tell you a story that I went through. So the whole concept of cancer started to sink in a little bit, and I sat down with my wife. She already knew. I had the conversation with the doctor, and we said, look, we're on a referral now, and there is a high possibility that I have cancer. The doctor didn't tell me I had cancer. She said there's a high possibility, very high. But we will know further once you've gone through the hospital fast track process. So we got a date, and it was quite quick after the phone call. I think it was within about 3 or 4 days. And then I remember that morning, and I sat at the table with breakfast, and I looked at my little, my youngest, and there was these thoughts going through my head: is what if this turns out on the worst case scenario? What is that little boy going to do without his dad? And bear in mind, he's been part of my life And I'll tell you a little bit of story about this. I've got two sons. One's at university. He's doing a physics degree, a master's degree in physics. And I've got a 9-year-old. Now, I've worked away for a majority of my life, and probably for the first 10 years of my eldest son's life, I wasn't really a part of it. I was working rotation in the oil and gas industry, and I was a part-time dad, as I was called. Many times I used to work away for 4 weeks, come home for 3 weeks, and then go back. So the first 10 years of my eldest son's life, I wasn't really a part of it. So this carries on to the part where I took a contract in Australia, and we went as a family unit, and we were over there for 3 years, and my wife fell pregnant with my youngest, and we decided to come back after the contract had finished in 2014 and set up life here where we are now. And my youngest was born. And at that stage, I had the feelings like I needed to take quite a long break. I was exhausted. And my wife was eager to go back and start her career up again. And we basically reversed roles. I became the stay-at-home dad purely because I'd missed out so much on, my eldest son's life and growing up. So I wanted to have that experience. So we reversed the roles. My wife, after 6 months after the birth of my youngest, she went back to work. And it worked very well, although we were both quite exhausted from the whole experience of moving house and changing the lifestyles from Australia back to here. There was an awful lot to do, and it was an adjustment period. And that little period of my life started in 2014. There was very much a period thereon after of resettling ourselves, re-establishing ourselves, getting used to the reversing of roles, and me growing into a role that I really had very little knowledge about. It was a newborn baby. Don't get me wrong, my wife was a huge part of that process of his, first 6 months. Sleeping patterns, or probably the lack of sleep. The reason I'm telling you this is because while all this was going on, the cancer had already started in me, in my prostate. Because when I was diagnosed, it was stage 3, possibly stage 4, because it was very, very close to the bone, if not already attached itself to the bone. It had erupted out of my prostate, and it was spreading through other parts of my body. And they were very concerned about it attaching itself to my bone, to the bone. But just skipping back and understanding the process of, getting used to my new role as a stay-at-home dad, raising my youngest, that went on and is still ongoing. And the bond I had with both my boys, is beyond anything you can understand when you're confronted with cancer, and an aggressive cancer. Because when I sat at that breakfast table and I looked at him, it was really quite a vivid thought of him growing up and going through school life without his dad. Now that is something not many people have to contemplate. And certainly a young child losing his father is just as much as an impact as me knowing that I won't be around. So that was a wake-up call. It was a huge wake-up call on that morning, having breakfast, knowing that I'm going to start this journey going back and forth to the hospital. You know, having scans, bone scans, ultrasounds, all these things, that just adds the layer, the next layer, and the next layer, and the next layer, till they get to the point where they're going to tell you exactly your situation, and then how they're going to move forward on the treatment. But these are all going to be later episodes, and you're going to see some fascinating stuff, or you're going to hear some fascinating stuff, some really quite funny scenarios and conversations I've had. And it is a diary of me going through the last 14 months and before that, which will help people if they know somebody, or if they have a brother, a dad, or somebody they know. It just softens the blow a little bit, because what I went through is not everybody's journey. You know, probably some people have a lot worse than what I've gone through, and some probably deal with it a lot better. But you have to confront your emotional state sometimes, because it does impact the family and it impacts yourself. And if you keep it all in there, boy, you're heading in a pretty rocky road. You know, I want to emphasize again, I'm not trying to educate anybody. I'm just telling my story, and I hope it helps people as we move along. But if you like this, and you think it's a story that you want to share with me, give me a thumbs up and subscribe. It really helps me. So that's it for today, and we can carry on a bit more in a week. I post one a week, and I also post a cooking time with me and the family. So thanks again, and I'll see you on the next episode.